Am I the a-hole for admitting that my parents and niece what is the reason that I left? I, 29 male, have a niece, 19 female, and as the title says, she and my parents are a massive reason why I moved away. When she was a little kid, she was unbelievably disrespectful, and just downright mean. She would literally scream, yell, if no one was around she would cuss at me, and occasionally, she would do random crap that she would have never done if my mother, her grandmother, or her parents were around. For example, she would spit, throw stuff, purposely spill stuff, and if I ever stopped her or told her to stop she would run to grandma and tell her I was being mean, and I would get in trouble, and if I didn't stop her I would still get in trouble. A month before my 18th birthday, I told my parents that I wanted to visit NYC, and they said that was fine. We lived in South Carolina, if that matters, and my niece's birthday was 2 days before mine. 3 days before my birthday, and 2 before we were supposed to leave, I already got my bags packed, and they saved up, booked the tickets, and were ready to go. The next day my parents informed me that we couldn't go because they had planned a huge surprise parties for my niece, but they miscalculated or something, and it was a lot more expensive than they thought. If I remember correctly, it was about $6,000, so they used the money that they saved for the trip on the party. When I asked them why they couldn't just cancel it instead, they got mad, and my dad said I was being an entitled brat, and my mom said I was being selfish for not wanting my niece to enjoy her special day. Well, they didn't cancel it, but instead moved it back by 2 days due to some kind of schedule mix-up. I was honestly tired of their bull, so I moved to New York, and went to college there, and that's where I stayed, and now I'm an attorney with 2 amazing sons. About 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from an uncle about a family reunion. It was a couple of days ago. I thought it would be nice for my sons to meet some of their family members. If I recall correctly, the only people they know are the people who moved up to New York, which is a couple of my cousins and my younger brother. So, we went, and when I saw my niece she acted the same as she did before. Later in the evening, my aunt asked why I moved to New York. My mother answered for me, saying that it was, so I could go to college. I found it unbelievably amusing that she thought after all these years that was the reason, so I started laughing uncontrollably. My mother asked why I was laughing, so I told her that NYU wasn't one of the reasons why I left, and it was because they were crappy parents who loved and cared about their shitty granddaughter more than their son, and my niece was, and is still the perfect combination between a crotch goblin, a brat, and a shit stain. My mother called me an ungrateful, disrespectful brat, and my brother and SIL were pissed. I was a little pissed myself, so I just left. Am I the a-hole? Well, one time my dad was called to the hospital because his mom was so drunk. She should have been dead with how much alcohol was in her system, but she wasn't. She was screaming and fighting. From what I've heard when I asked about it, my dad had to raise his siblings for a long time because she was never around. And if she wasn't always sober. There's so much she didn't remember from back then. She eventually got better. But because of the smoking, drinking, and whatnot, she was in bad shape when I got to know her, and she died when I was around 9, I think. I will add that this is an extreme case, and not a lot of people would have the same experience here. I'm guessing most parents, like the OPs, just refuse to acknowledge they did anything wrong and pretend that they don't remember. But in some rare cases, they may actually not remember anything from certai. There are 2 other options that should be noted. I don't want to acknowledge that because I'm ashamed of the behavior which shows remorse for the action, but too much pride to apologize. This is distinctly different than deliberately gaslighting or dismissing the event. I genuinely didn't know that impacted you enough to stick with you, and it's only a vague memory of mine which is more on the behalf of a neglectful / worrisome / absent-minded parent who is generally well-meaning, but may have dropped the ball a few times. While some parenting behaviors can have negative effects, I do think it's fair to acknowledge when parents made an effort, but maybe did it incorrectly, and separate them from gutter trash that actually sets out to harm their offspring. The former can learn and improve, the latter can kick rocks. There is the remote possibility OP won a full-ride merit scholarship to NYU, and somehow managed to retain it despite its onerous conditions, must maintain a minimum of a 3.67 cumulative GPA with no D or F grades to retain it. However, that's the only viable possibility, as even 3+ decades ago, as NYU was already ridiculously expensive back then. It was a few grand higher per year full sticker than Harvard back then. Then again, everyone in my HS graduating class who was offered such half or full ride NYU merit scholarships also received full ride need-based FA admission offers to at least one Ivy, so the vast majority felt it was a no-brainer to take the Ivy offers from both financial and better educational/job networking opportunities. And the correctness of that decision was borne out as they all graduated from their respective Ivies debt-free at graduation, or within 6 months, without having to go into high-income career paths in banking/finance, organizational consulting, or computer technology-type jobs. Many of the HS classmates who went to NYU nearly 3 decades ago are either still paying back their college loans 2+ decades on, or just paid them off within the last few months. I was about to say, this story seemed fake to me as well even before the attorney thing, but when OP pulled out that card, I was like, wait, hold up a minute. Mainly because the writing seems to be of sophomore in high school level. But whatever, here's more fake internet points. If the story is true, then yeah, I would go with ESH. The niece, the parents, and even OP for his sloppy and poor execution of handling this type of scenario. I would hope as an attorney he would be able to more calmly and concisely convey his message, so it got across. Also 29 with 2 sons, and as an attorney is all very sus. Most students barely finish law school by the time they're 30, much less do it while getting married and having a family. Also, where is the wife in all this? Assuming the 2 kids aren't out of wedlock. Where are the grandparents with the 2 sons? Why would they have not built a solid relationship with them either? IDK, the whole thing is all over the place. It's all bullshit from my POV. I have a 9-year-old niece. If my sister and I had a trip planned and she cancelled because my niece was throwing a tantrum, chucking plates out of the window, and demanding an early birthday party, I'd tell my sister to grow the fuck up and parent her child properly. The 8-year-old is not deciding the family calendar, making decisions, or controlling the finances here. No one is denying that kids have their own personalities, but it's up to the people raising a kid to put boundaries in place. If they'd been catering to her every whim and not teaching her emotional control, patience, waiting her turn, and other executive functions that develop by age 5, of course she's going to be a shitty 8-year-old that expects to get what she wants. But again, the kid isn't actually responsible for any of the logistics of her birthday and his. That's on the adults here. If this story is true, then you moved away from home at age 18, got an education, and became a successful lawyer. In the 11 years since then, you've apparently been holding a grudge against someone who you last knew as an 8-year-old child, so intense that you responded to an innocuous interaction at a family reunion by uncontrollably laughing like a psycho, and then delivering a line of pure, unadulterated cringe straight out of a 14-year-old's revenge fantasy, complete with some Reddit child-free buzzwords. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible for a grown man with a life and a career to be that bizarrely immature. God knows I've seen it before, but teenager trolling Reddit is definitely the more likely possibility here. You are an adult man who was jealous of an 8-year-old girl. Your parents should not have promised a trip then cancelled it. That was terrible. It's not the kid's fault. Big expensive kids' parties are not about the kid demanding them, but about the adults needing to show off. Your niece was likely unaware of both the expense of the party and about the need to cancel your trip. YTA, because you placed your anger on the kid and not the people parenting the kid. Your parents are the as they spoiled their granddaughter and mistreated their son. The only one who isn't an at this point is this 19-year-old kid who has never learned how to behave due to her grandparents and parents spoiling her, and likely will suffer greatly in her young adult life because of it. You're almost 30 now. You're a parent yourself. Grow up and be the example of a mature adult that your kids and your niece need.